Hello everyone and welcome to the other match of the Goldmoney Asian Rapid knockouts. It's the battle for third place and it's Magnus Carlsen versus Ding Liren. A match, well, a lot of you thought would be the match for the first place, but it's not because even though Magnus and Ding both won their first match against Levon and Artemiev, both Levon and Artemiev were able to bounce back, win the second match and then win in tiebreak. So it was an incredible day for both of them, and now Magnus and Ding need to brawl it out for third place. So let's see what happened. This is game one of their match, and it's quite an enjoyable one. So Magnus with the white pieces opens with c4. We have knight to f6 by Ding, knight to c3, and now e5, going for the two knights variation of the English. We have e3 and now knight to c6, the so-called reversed Sicilian line of the English. Queen to b3, and now comes bishop to b4, and already this is a new move, so already as of move 4 we have a completely new game. Pretty incredible stuff. We have knight to d5. Magnus tries to take advantage of the weirdly placed bishop here, and only now Ding shifts the bishop back to c5. Instead of that bishop to b4, most people just develop the bishop to c5 right away, but okay. Ding has a plan. We have d3 and now castles. We have knight to f3 and d6 now, preparing to develop the light square bishop. Knight back to c3. Now Magnus wants to shift this knight over to e4 and knight to e7 now. Now you can play c6, maybe striking the center with the d5. We have bishop to e2 and now knight to g6. We have castles by Magnus and now rook to e8. And here bishop to d2. You can see that Magnus is playing a very slow maneuvering game, so taking a very cautious approach against Ding in round 1. We have h6 and now rook f to d1. We have bishop to b6. Now that the rook is here, you might move the bishop, execute d4 at some point, so the bishop is safer here on b6, but also you can just develop your light square bishop so your b7 pawn will not be hanging. So here, knight to e4. And here Magnus is offering a chance for Ding to double his pawns, but if Ding does this, then yes, you've doubled his pawns, but then Magnus will have, well, an eternal grip on the d5 square. You will not be able to cross it, and, well, these pawns are controlling these squares very nicely, so it's not all that bad. But you could play it, for example, knight h4, then we trade, captures, and it's a pretty fine position for black. But Ding doesn't like it. He plays c6 instead. He prepares his d5 idea now. Bishop to c3 now, and knight to h7. We're here with some ideas of maybe executing f5, maybe trying to push, maybe the knight is coming to g5, so, you know, all depends on what white plays. Of course, you do not want to play f5 while the queen is here, otherwise just, you know, c5 and you lose the bishop. So here we have bishop to b4. This is a very interesting move because it hones in on the d6 pawn, which is a backwards pawn, and you don't really have a good way of defending it. You could play c5, but that looks a bit weird, closing in your dark square bishop like this, so Ding just advances it to the other pawn to d5. So here we have captures, and now knight to d6, attacking the rook and the bishop here. Ding just moves the rook. We have rook to e6, and now knight captures on c8. Rook captures, and now rook 8 to c1. So with this little maneuver, it seems that Magnus was able to activate both of Ding's rooks. So it's not bad, because Ding had problems developing that light square bishop and bringing the rook into the game. We have knight back to f6 by Ding, and now g3, weakening the king's position a little bit, but you are keeping those knights at bay. So here, rook to c7, Ding is preparing to double up on the c-file, trying to do some damage here, and bishop to f1 now. Magnus says, that's not a problem, I'm just going to remaneuver my bishop to this long diagonal. We have queen to c8, now threatening to win material with rook captures on c1, so Magnus trades here, we have captures, and now bishop to c3. So now the e pawn is being pressured, so rook to e8, but instead of rook to e8, you don't really have a good move here for black. The position is fine, but you have to play very passively. There's not all that much you can do here. So Ding has to try something. He plays rook to e8. Maybe he can, you know, shift the rook over to c8 if this bishop ever moves, but, you know, just giving the move to Magnus. So rook to c1, now threatening to win some material. Okay, not for the moment. The rook here is not defended, but you are eyeing that queen, so, you know, better just move the queen. So queen to d7, and now bishop to g2. So just slowly but surely improving the position. We have queen to f5 by Ding, and now rook to d1, defending that d3 pawn. We have e4 now by Ding, and here Ding is, you know, enjoying his position. He's very happy he was able to execute this e4 push, but Magnus not all that worried. He plays pawn captures. We have pawn captures and knight to d2, and here Ding goes knight to g4. There was a better idea than knight to g4. Knight to e5 with the threat of knight f3 seems to be much scarier. And here White would maybe have to give up his very strong dark square bishop, but you know. It's hard to find everything in a rapid game. So here, Ding played knight to g4. He put pressure on this f2 pawn, but now Magnus just defends it. Rook to f1, and he doesn't care. He says Ding has nothing here. Yes, there are a lot of pieces here in front of my king. The bishop is on a very nice diagonal, but I'm not worried about anything. And here, Ding should continue with something like, well, it's not an easy position for Ding, but he should probably play something like knight to e5, but even that doesn't really help him. Yes, you go after this f3 pawn, but just queen to a4 attacks the rook, and now there's a triple attack on this pawn, and you don't have time for knight to f3 check. You will not have time to capture back because the rook here is hanging. So Ding considers this, but he says nope. There's a much better move, and he plays knight captures on f2. We've reached a position from the thumbnail, and this is a pretty scary idea if it worked, but it doesn't, so it's not. So feel free to pause the video here and win the game for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on not doing anything weird like rook captures on f2. If you capture this, then bishop captures on e3, just wins the game. There's no way to defend this rook here, and black will just have a much better position. And for those of you who found this incredible knight to c4, then congratulations, you really are an impressive player. So this move is incredible because now there's the threat of rook captures knight. The knight here is just silly, and the knight on c4 is preventing the bishop from capturing the e3 pawn while also attacking the bishop. So here Ding really doesn't have a good reply to this. The knight will fall, and you don't have an answer to this. Ding tried knight to h3 check, but there's a second problem here. Now that he moves the knight, look at this. The rook and the queen are attacking the f7 pawn, and that's a huge problem. Now Magnus just happily captures, he wins a piece, and now Ding doesn't really have an option. He captures on h3, but now Magnus just removes the bishop from b6 and opens up the queen's attack to the f7 pawn, and it was in this position on move 32 that Ding Liren resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You've just lost a piece, and if you accept the knight here with a captures on b6, we just play queen captures on f7 check, king here or h7, and then this is checkmate. So that's not playable, and other than that, you don't really have a move. This is being threatened, you can defend it, but then we just bring the knight back into the game. We're up a piece, we enjoy a much better position, and now the position is completely winning. We have, well, like I said, there's an extra piece, the bishop is a monster, and there's simply no compensation here for Ding. So Ding had a very, very interesting game. Magnus played it very cautiously, and in the end it paid out. Ding tried attacking. I guess he was bored already with slow maneuvering. He came at Magnus, and Magnus was ready with this incredibly impressive knight to c4 idea. Really, really awesome stuff, because it just attacks the e3 pawn, and that's it. There's nothing to be done. So yeah, after knight captures on b6, Ding resigned, and Magnus wins game 1. And for those of you who are interested what happened in the other games, I don't know if I'll have time to cover them. I will now mention it, so don't listen if you're not interested. After Magnus won the first game, all the 3 games that followed ended in a draw, which means that Magnus wins the first match. So Magnus wins the first match. We'll see what happens tomorrow after we check out the finals between Levon and Artemiev. We're going to check out on this match as well. So a very, very, very nice game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Lance Hassan, Connor Clark, James Walker, Peter Milner, and Wolfgang Schmidt for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the finals, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your weekend.